Hello CIS-25. This is a video on Lab 1-1 and 1-2 for week 1. Unfortunately, my Zoom recording didn't have great sound, so I'm re-recording the lab. So if you missed the lab, you can watch this video. So in this lab exercise, we are going to look at some of the input and the output devices on the common laptop. And in computing system, which is based on von Neumann model, a computer system would have storage, processing, input, output, and in the processing area, we would know that that would be used for arithmetic computation and also to be able to control the resources like hardware. So in the first question for the lab, it asks you to identify the input and the output devices on the common laptop. Input device is a device that would bring in the data into the system. The way that we can enter the data is we would use a keyboard, or we would be able to click and select something, so that will be a mouse. For the laptop, that will be touchpad. Sometimes that would be touchscreen. Now, touchscreen can be both input and output. So that will be I/O, because you're able to output image on the screen and be able to register touch on the screen as an input. Then we also have a microphone. We can enter our voice for recording. We can use camera or webcam to be able to record image. Now the output would be your display or your screen. That could be LCD or LED. And it could also be a speaker where you can output sound. External drive. And drives is also an I/O, an input and output, because we can introduce data into the system through the storage device like external hard drive or USB, or even an SD or micro SD storage. We can also output, we can take data from the system and store it onto the device, so that one is also an I/O. Now on the laptop uses battery, and the battery requires that you would have an adapter, an AC adapter. Your household electricity is DC, and in order to utilize it on the system, computing system uses AC type of electricity. So you would then need to have an adapter in order to charge the battery. So the main power source of the laptop would be your battery. That will be the answer for question 2. For question 3, what should you do before you begin repairing a laptop? You want to make sure that you unplug the laptop. We want to disconnect the charging cable or the AC adapter from the laptop. You would then remove the battery, and not all laptop you can eject the battery. Some laptop, the battery is actually underneath the panel cover on the bottom of the laptop. So you would then have to unplug the laptop, open the cover, and remove the battery. Now, when you unplug the power, you would then drain the battery. And when you remove the battery, there's no power source for the system, then it will be safe to be able to touch some of the components inside, as all the components are connected. Now, before you start touching the components inside, you want to make sure that yourself is grounded. The way that we can ground ourselves is we can touch something that's metal, and you would want to use bare floor. Before we start working on our laptop, we want to look at the documentation from the manufacturer, either a manual or some kind of documentation. You can find this on manufacturing website. So if I'm fixing a Dell laptop, I would go to Dell, I would locate the laptop model, and I would find the documentation from the website. the reason why we want to do that is we want to know the specification of our components. Maybe if you're replacing a certain device inside the laptop, or you can upgrade RAM. In that case, we wanted to see the compatibility of the device to that system. And also we want to know the physical location of that particular component. So that's very important. So those are the things that you need to prepare before you start repairing your laptop. Now, in technical support, you would have clients or users in the company that would ask you to repair system like a laptop. So in number 4, it asks you, a client asks you to repair a laptop. It's a Lenovo T470, and this is a Type 20 HD. Where can you locate the manual? You would go visit Lenovo website, and you would then enter the model number, and it would take you to a page where it shows specification, and there would be a link where you can download documentation or view it. That way you can know the specific components that go into that system. The type of tools that you need, and you can find a lot of repair toolkit that's available via Amazon or certain vendor. You can spend between $20-something to $50 or $100-something. Now, if you put together your toolkit, it's pretty simple. You would need a non-magnetic screw that will be a Phillips screwdriver. You also want to have smaller screwdrivers for laptop because laptop uses the smaller screw. And also necessary if you're using something that you can replace the bits on that screwdriver, you want to have a set of bits, as not all screws would utilize the same type of screwdriver. You want to have an anti-static wrist strap. This will keep ourselves grounded and safe when we're working on electronic components. You can also have an anti-static mat. Now, when you take out the components, you want to lay it in a mat. If you don't have a mat, the newer device or the newer component will come with a silver bag, and that's an anti-static bag. You can touch inside of that bag to remove the static because we have a lot of static electricity around us. So that way that you would be able to reduce the static, and so you don't ruin the component. So if you have an anti-static mat, you can use that. And the way that you would use the mat is it would come with a clip, and you want to clip that to something metal nearby. When you're repairing desktop, that would be easy. That will be the case. But if you don't repair a desktop, you're repairing a laptop, you want to clip your mat and your anti-static strap to the metal. I would suggest having a small flashlight. This is helpful when you're looking into crevices that would be small, or when you're trying to find something that's very tight closed, so you want to use a flashlight. A couple pair of tweezers will be helpful because laptop parts are very small. Screw can be very small, and when you remove the screw, I suggest having maybe a screw container so you don't lose your screw. And before you open your laptop, you should also take a picture of, how everything would be when it's put together. So that way when you replace the component, you would then be able to put it back like how it was. I also suggest having extra cable like network cable, USB, that will help you with maybe transferring data, connecting external devices, and in the case where if you're troubleshooting and maybe the wireless adapter is malfunctioning, you can use the network cable or the Ethernet cable to be able to connect it to the network, so you can download drivers or necessary software that you might need to fix that system. And then lastly, this is optional, but it's suggested. you would want to have some adapters that's spare. The way that we test device is to use a known good device. So if you have a known good adapter, you can plug it in and test it in the case that the adapter inside the laptop is malfunctioning or it's going bad. And then we would have a network interface card. And network interface card is where you would plug in the Ethernet cable to connect it to the local area network or the network. So, and sometimes it might be helpful to have a USB ones. They are a little bit more affordable now, so you will be able to have that. When you expand your tool sets, you can also buy some adapters and things that you would need. Sometimes you would have spare known good device, so that way you can test some of the components inside that system if they're going bad. For number 6, it asks you, why should you document and label the components before removing and replacing the laptop components? Because we need to know the component location for replacement. So I suggest taking your smartphone, taking a picture of how everything should look. And as you remove each part of the laptop, like the cover, and then before you take off the components, you want to take a picture of it so that way you know how maybe the connection is supposed to be. Also, if you want to use label, you can use like small post-it notes, and you want to label maybe the number on how everything should be plugged in. So it's a good way to kind of give yourself a procedure or a map on how things should look when they are plugged back in together. And then number 7, it asks you to refer to the below image and identify the appropriate ports for the laptop and describe their purpose. So we're just going to start with number 1 on the left here, and this is for your memory stick reader. This is an older technology. Some older laptop you will find that this is used. It's very similar to what you see with micro SD today. Back then we would use memory stick to transfer data, maybe from a camcorder, or back then we would have digital camera or another system. That is used to read memory stick, and memory sticks is used for storage. Then number 2 is your SD. You can see the label here. Usually they would have label for them. And that would be for your SD card slot, and SD stands for Secure Digital. This was used in a lot of the portable devices, like your tablets. The older tablets would use that, or even on video cameras or digital cameras, or smaller portable device. It's used to read secure digital card, and digital cards are used for storage. Number 3 is a female video graphic array. This is the acronyms for that is VGA. You often find this in TVs, screens, and this is used to adapt or connect to a monitor or media projection. This is an older technology, and that's what we use to connect to video. The reason why I say this is female is because, as you can see, it would have these pinholes, and the number of pinholes would indicate that connection interface. And this is a DB12, so that means that there are 12 pins, and the shape, it looks like a D. So that's an easier way to help you remember. So that will be a VGA. For number 4, that will be your high definition multimedia interface. That's your HDMI. And HDMI is able to give you image and sound in high definition. That's the newer technology. And this is used to connect to your monitor or your projector. Next to that, you would see USB 3.1 all the rated new USB is 3.1. It's not 3.0, so we should say 3.1. And this is blue, and we would see the USB symbol there. 3.1 will be faster than the 2.0 because it's the newer technology. The transfer rate for that would be higher. Next is going to be 6 is both, and that's going to be USB 2.0. This is used to connect external device. That would be like your external hard drive. You can even connect your smartphone via USB if you're using Android system. Number 7 is your Ethernet port. This is used for connecting to your network, and that will be a cable that we would plug in here. The connector for that cable is RJ45. And lastly, number 8 is your DC connector. This is used for power. It's used to power the system and also charge the battery. And some newer laptop would use USB-C, and this can be varied in the model. It could be the same brand, but the connection for AC adapter would be a little different. So that is going to convert your current from AC to DC. For the next image, we are going to go ahead and continue to label. This is a different laptop. We have A, that's going to be your media card slot. That's very similar to the last one. And this one is used to read media storage. Next is going to be B. This is a larger card slot, and back in the day they would use what's called express card. That's also another storage device, so that would be used for storage. It would be used to read express card. Then for the C, this is going to be your micro HDMI. It's definitely smaller than your regular HDMI. That will be used for monitor connection or projection. Now you notice that the USB 2.0, the standard is that you would see that it would be black compared to the inside. For the 3.1, it will be blue. So D is USB 2.0. It's used to connect to external device. E is going to be your FireWire, and this is a FireWire B. So the standard for that is going to be the 1394. This is used to transfer data at a higher speed. It's often used for Apple device, Sony device, or Texas Instrument, which is Lynx. And then lastly, F is going to be your security lock slot. This is used to lock that system physically. Next, we are going to identify the components on this particular laptop with its case open. You will also find this information on your notes document. This is on page 3 of your notes as well. So let's go and label this. So the first component here is your hard drive. And this is your hard disk drive, which is HDD. It's used for storage. Your operating system resides on there along with your files. And the cover around it is the frame for it. This hard drive is mounted with the 2 screws here. So in order to remove this, we first need to remove the cover around it and then take off the screw, and we'll be able to replace it. And all laptop use this 2.5 inch, or most laptop I should say use 2.5 inch, which is a lot smaller than your regular desktop HDD, which is 3.5. It's a little thicker and bigger, so you would see here that it is 2.5 inch physically. And on the drive, you would see a sticker where it would have a label for drive specification and the interface, which is how we would connect it. Most of the HDD nowadays uses SATA, and we'll have a chapter on storage. The next one is number 2. This is your wireless adapter, and wireless adapter is used to connect to the wireless network. You would see the connection. Usually it would have a wire connecting to the side right here for antenna purposes. Then number 3 is your RAM, and keep in mind that the location of this might be similar with other laptop and not exactly the same, so it could be varied to brand and model. And for the laptop, it would use SODIMM, and SO stands for Small Outline Dual Inline Memory Module. SODIMM is smaller physically than your regular desktop RAM, which is just DIMM. And they are dual inline, so usually we would want to install them as pairs. Now on the memory, usually it would have a sticker. It will tell you the speed. It would usually say PC something, and also the type of RAM. And in the lecture video, I talked a little bit about RAM. So to remove the RAM, we would unlatch. There are levers or secure lock on the side of the RAM, and it would lock in the notch of it. So you want to pull that out, and that's gonna release the RAM card or the module, and you can detach it. Then you would take a new one and put it in. So we always want to install them in pairs for the dual inline memory module. Next is going to be number 4, which is a CMOS battery. This is used to provide power to for your basic input-output system information for setup, and it needs that power to really retain the data about that particular system with its installed components. And we will touch on BIOS at the later time. Number 5 is going to be your main battery, and that's at the top. Most older laptop, you would see that here. In this one, it's detachable. So you can usually, there's a button or a glider where you would be able to remove the battery. So those are the 5 components for this particular laptop. So given the laptop with this specification, what are the recommendations for upgrade? So we have an Acer laptop, and its physical size is 15.6 inch. This is the model, and you can probably open up your browser. We can go into the search, and then we can take the model number, and we can find this laptop information. So we would get a better understanding of the specification. We can go to a vendor website like Newegg or Walmart, or we can find that information from Acer itself. So now to upgrade, we can start with some of the simple storage. We know that this is the processor that's using, it's 8th generation, so it's not too old, and the speed of it is at 1.6 gigahertz, and it's not quite that fast. So then we can think about how we would upgrade the RAM. So here we have only 8 gigs of RAM, and as the user require more applications, right, we would want to consider adding more RAM. So I would suggest we can upgrade the RAM to 16 gig, which is going to be 2 modules of 8 gig. So if it has 1 stick of RAM or 1 module, we can buy a second module and install, but likely that you would have 2 stick of 4 gigs. That's going to give you 8 gig. So what we can do is we can remove those and replace them with 2 sticks of 8 gigabyte. Then for the hard drive, we can consider adding, maybe install a secondary drive if there is a slot for it or connection. Or we can replace the drive with higher capacity. However, if you do that, what will happen is you would then have to transfer the data after you install the operating system, because the hard drive is where your operating system resides. So we want to make sure that the user would have the same application they started with, along with the operating system that's used to run the application. So that is contingent to OS, and that can be costly with the license. It has the NVIDIA GeForce, so it has some display adapter, so we don't really need to touch on that, and it has Windows 10. So what I would do is I would add a secondary drive, so that way this individual would have more, the user would have more storage to store their files. It really depends on what they're using the laptop for. So those are a simple upgrade. Now, if they want to increase the speed drastically, then we can consider looking at the compatible CPU. And so we can look at, the socket of the CPU, how it's plugged in. Is that compatible with the new i7, a newer i7, I should say, or something in that same model, Intel i5, but in a later generation, like 11th generation, so that will be faster. Not all i5 would be the same speed. Not all i7 or i9 would be the same speed. There's different level of the processor, even though it would say i5 or i7 or i9. So this is an Intel core. It would use the system board for the Intel. So we have to when we upgrade, we have to look for the Intel core that would fit onto the system board at that socket. Okay. And then lastly, if you're working from home for this particular lab and you didn't come into the lab, do your best. If you don't have a laptop, you can use the internet to be able to locate a laptop, so you can take a look at the components that go into the laptop. I would want you to look at something on the inside. There are a lot of videos and also websites that you can use. In addition to, if you have built computers before, if you have a laptop that you have repaired before, you can use that laptop and identify some of the components that we discussed in this lab today. This concludes my video for Lab 1-1. Once you complete the lab, you can go to Canvas and you would go to the page of the assignment. You can click it right here, and then you should see the Start Assignment button, and then you would attach it and then you would submit it. And once I receive it, I will be able to grade it based on the answers that you provide, and I will give you feedback inside. And once you have completed those tasks and you got the grade, you would be able to find your grade located onto here. So when you click it, it would show the updated grade once I grade the assignment. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the next video where I talk about Lab 1-2.